Alright, here's what we're going to do today. We're going to do a chain and sprocket swap on a 2022 Monster Plus. So, talked about in one of the review videos how we wanted to reduce the gearing a little bit, just to make it, they're geared a little bit tall, so these L-twin motors can be a little bit luggy at low RPMs. So wanted to do that, get a little more acceleration, and you're not really losing top end on these. Top speed on these bikes is in the 130s somewhere, a legit, maybe if you really push it 140. It's geared to go 160, but you'll never get that on the road in the real world. You'd have to be in a vacuum. And if you were in a vacuum, you'd be dead. So we're going to do that. We're going to change to a gold chain, which is obviously the fastest chain. Gold chain looks nicer, and it doesn't get surface rust as much, so that's good. So we got a Super Sprox 45 tooth instead of the 43, and you might be thinking, well, why not just go down one in the front? Because actually doing the front's kind of easier, because you can get to it. It's right under that cover and the slave cylinder for the clutch. The problem is with Ducati, they already have a 15 tooth front sprocket. That's about as small as a sprocket as you want to go on a bike. Anything smaller, then you got to worry about the chain rubbing on the swing arm. Also a smaller sprocket in the front. The links have to turn further to get around that smaller radius. And so going up two in the back is fine. And because she wanted a gold chain anyway, I was like, you know what, do that. And buy a chain. I think it's 106 or 108 links is stock. I said order like a 110 or a 112 so you got a couple extra links. And that way we can make sure that your wheelbase is right, and cut the chain to length. So go up in the back, 2 teeth, which is going down to the front. One is about 2.3 or so, 2.4 teeth in the back. So that's what we done did. So the steps here are going to be pretty standard and straightforward. First thing you want to do is get it up in the stand. And you may notice I cleaned my garage a little bit. Now you may be looking at this and going, this is your idea of clean? Yeah, this is better than it was, and it's going to get better still, but what I'm doing here is cleaned out this whole area, put the carpet squares over here, put the stand over here, and this is going to be the work area. That backsley chock makes it easy to just drive in whatever bike you want to do the oil change or whatever, just drive it in straight and then throw it up on the rear stand. You don't need a person to help you hold the bike. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get a lift. I'm going to get a lift with a chock built in the front where you drive whatever bike you want to work up onto the lift, and then it'll be plugged into the air compressor and you just lift it up and work on it. Get a chair with some wheels, wheel around it. At some point that shelf is coming out and that stuff in the corner, and we're probably going to put an actual tire machine and a balancing machine like you'd see at Cycle Gear. I think for a couple grand it'll pay for itself between doing it for me and my friends and just order tires to the house cheaper and just throw them on and balance them. So those are some things that are coming, and then the other bikes can just sit over here, and then whatever bike happens to be getting oil changes or worked on can park over in this area, and then I got plenty of room. If I needed to do something over here, I got room in between. So we got this up on the stand because you're going to have to take the rear wheel off on this one. When you do in the front, you don't. You just take the cover off of the master cylinder. So the first thing that we're going to want to do here is get all your stuff set out. Now these new chains aren't as bad as the old chains that used to have just caked in grease. Normally I take the chain out and a rag and brake cleaner and just completely clean the thing before I install it and then re-oil it. Here it's not too bad, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it as is. So the steps involved are you're going to need to locate your master link. All right, well, first of all, I need to loosen my little pit bull thing. This is a great little tool to have too on the pit bull. It holds your tire in place. All right, so there's our master link. So I'm going to put that out here, and then we'll just raise that a little bit so it puts pressure on the tire, and that way when you take the axle out, the tire doesn't want to fall out. It makes it just easier to put the whole thing back together. So we're going to use our chain breaker. We've got an RK or EK chain braking tool, and I'll try to set up the camera so you can see what I'm doing, but we're going to push one of those pins out. That's going to bust that link. The pin's going to pop out the back. That chain's going to then, this link is going to fall off and separate into the, just a single piece instead of a loop. It'll be just one long strand. What we're going to want to do then is use that existing master link and just loop. We're not going to press it on, just push on the new chain, and we're going to use the old chain to pull the new chain up and through the sprocket and back out. And then we're just going to let it hang here. At that point, we're going to take off this nut, pop the wheel off, Then we're gonna bust those nuts. You gotta bust a nut. We're gonna take these off. On this bike, it's a 14 mil, and it's, I think, the 12 point you're gonna need to loosen those. This is a 30 mil. Those are really the only tools that we're gonna need, other than the chain breaking tool. And instead of using a ratchet or a wrench, impact driver. You'll see just how quick you can pop that thing. So I may or may not even speed up this video just so you can see really how long it takes. So bust the chain, connect the new chain to it, pull it through, throw the old chain off, let the new chain hang, take off the 30 mil, take off the wheel, take off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, pop on the new sprocket, torque them down, put the wheel back in, and then we just got to cut the chain to length and then rivet it up. So let's go ahead and get a little stand over here. It should all be, let's see. I should get everything in view. Fan shouldn't be blowing on the cameras. All right, anyway, show you how easy this is. Find your master link. When using an impact wrench for anything, don't start it with the impact wrench. Ask me how I know. So it's very easy to cross thread. You won't realize it till. So always thread it, give it a bunch of turns, make sure it's in, then use the impact. These tools are like 120 bucks. They are worth every penny. And looks like I broke the tip. That happens every once in a while. I've done about 15, 20 chains with that particular pin, and it looks like finally broke it. Oh no, maybe it just popped out. Never mind, it just unscrewed. Good, didn't break it. All right, now, old chain. Take new chain. In, I'm going to need a master just because of the way I cut that. So do not lose any of these parts. We'll show you how to put these together. So what I'm going to do is just loosely put that through. Pull that chain through. There we go. Don't worry about unkinking it. Don't worry about cutting it or any of that stuff. Just let it lay there for now. Take this, put it aside. Now, at this point, I need to take the wheel off. My hands are now greasy. Do yourself a favor. Take your gloves off so you don't get grease on your wheel. These are disposable. Throw them out. We'll get another set. Alright. Now, how much of it torque out? Look at the suspension moving. Fuck. Whoever did this last time way over torqued it. Christ. twist on a cracker. Now this is weird. Oh, huh. This looks... Okay, this is odd. This is threaded on here, but the nut is on the other side. I looked at that and saw what looked like a nut, so I'm thinking, all right, that's where I got to loosen it. Now, it's the other side, which makes sense because normally the axle comes out to that side, but just looking at it, so maybe that wasn't over torqued. Notice how the wheel didn't fall? That's that piece. It's awesome. So now you lift this, and your wheel rolls out. Move the caliper. This is the fun part. Push the caliper out of the way. And now the wheel just rolls out. When you roll it back in, it's going to hold it at the right level, so that's going to line up. Really, really nice way of doing it. Put your alignment tools. All right, so. I would use the impact, but I don't have, my sockets aren't 12 point, 9 point, or whatever these are. Okay. Right inside, out. Beautiful. That thing makes it so much easier. Alright, so I'm just going to tighten that by hand. And so now, what I want to do is bring the chain back, and we're going to loosen these adjusters, and we're going to move it forward a little bit, and we're going to try to find out how many links we've got to cut off. Try and get you a little closer to the action there. So that's what we're going to try to do now. So we take our chain, so here's where now we got to start figuring out, do we just cut it to length where it is? No, we got to move it forward. Yeah, we're going to move it forward here. Because when you cut the chain, you want to measure twice, cut once, right? So what you've got to do is you've got to cut it, so see how there's like an outside plate and then an inside plate? The master link is an outside plate, so it's got to have two inside plates up close to each other. If I cut this here, it's going to be an outside, I won't be able to put the master link in. So I've got to cut it here, you've got to cut it in even lengths. So if I cut it here, there's a gap. I can't get it close enough, so I've got to be able to move the wheel forward so I can skip that over a tooth, so that I get the ends where I want them. So take your 12 millimeter, loosen those, and then I think it's a 10. Luckily, it has no tension on it, so these are loose enough that I can move it by hand. So now, I can move the chain, or the wheel forward, to put some more slack in the chain. So what you want to do is keep this one here, and then pull the top one taut, and see if you can get it to the next. Looks like I might little. Yeah, I'm gonna need just a little more slack. Apparently that bottoms out. So that only goes in so far. So I need to see if I can try to stretch this, or we're just gonna have to move the wheel back. So that's where you gotta figure out and you gotta play with it. Going forward's fine. It'll shorten your wheelbase, it'll shorten up, quicken your steering a little bit, make it more wheelie happy. Which I don't think that's necessarily what I want. But what we want to be able to do you don't want to put it back so far that the chain invariably stretches over time. Like that's too tight, and I can't move it forward to loosen it anymore. Now, I could drive it like that a little bit, and the chain will stretch, but that's too tight. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to cut it on that one. Huh. We need to see if this is going to work. I may need to get a shorter bolt there, because if I cut it there, I'm going to see how... Yeah, I mean, that's moving it back a lot. I guess she's not going to change the... Well, that'll help keep the front end on, and it'll add to stability. That's the only problem when you're doing... You know, it depends on the bike. If we had gone up one tooth more, then that slack would be taken up by that. By only doing 2 teeth. So maybe that's if you're thinking of doing this mod. You can do it, it's just you're going to have your wheel fairly far back. Now, in my head, I don't mind that because this thing, it steers so sharp, you're not going to hamper your handling. But it will help keep the front end down. And some people are like, oh, I want it to wheelie more. For me personally, and I know how she rides, it's like, yeah, wheelies can look cool. They don't help you go faster. They usually make you go slower, honestly. So I'd almost rather have the extra wheelbase just to make it harder to wheelie, so all that power isn't being used to lift the bike, it's being used to drive it forward, if that makes sense. So this is what we're going to do. It doesn't move far enough to get to that next one without being too tight. So we're going to cut it right where it is. We're only taking 2 links off. And so you do it the same way we did it before. And it's like cutting wood. Measure twice, think about it. Make sure you're on the right length. And cut once, because you can't rivet it back on. Tighten that up. So now what we're going to do is drive that pin out, because we've got to shorten. Alright, so we're done with that part of the tool. We can put that away. Alright, so now, pull that off, pull off your O-rings, cast those aside. Your master link is going to come with new ones. So inside this pack is a bunch of little rubber X-rings, as well as the outside link, and a tube of goo. So what you want to do, tear open the goo. It should be cut. If not, don't use your teeth, although it's going to suck if I have to. There we go. So what you want to do is take all of your little O-rings, and you're going to smear some grease on them. Get it all inside those little grooves. This is the lube that's going to stay inside the O-rings. When you slather all the grease and shit on the outside of your chain, you're not oiling or lubing these pivot points where they need it. So that's where that grease goes inside. Now, take your other two, put them on this side. Get your rag with your brake cleaner. Keep your hands as clean as possible. And now you're going to use the other parts of your tool here to lightly press this on. And then you're going to have to rivet it. So there's a plate, and again, don't get caught up on which part is what, because your chain tool might be slightly different. So, and doing this and watching my tutorial assumes that you have a chain tool and know how to do this. So what we're going to do here, this is honestly the trickiest part of this whole damn operation, is getting this on to where it sits and you can hold it in place and then use this to push it in. So, very light torque settings. I usually drop it to number 2. And you want to lightly press and then take it off and make sure that it's going on straight. Alright, so we're almost there. Okay. So now that that is pressed on, see how the pieces are sticking out now, right here? We got those sticking out. Now you got to mushroom them. So there's another part on your chain tool that'll go in here in the press. This one is a cup that holds the other side of the rivet. And then you're going to have this one that's dimpled. That's going to go into that hole, and you're going to want to mush it. I don't get out the calipers. There's a certain amount of mushness. I've done it enough times. You don't want to over mush it, or you're going to create a tight spot there where that part of the chain's going to pinch. You just need to mush it over like 0.5 millimeter so that physically it can't pull through. That's all you're looking to do. So don't crank it. You want to keep that gap in there. You don't want to smush the O-ring or damage it or anything like that. So don't overdo this. You're just going to give it a couple oogas or use your ratchet, and you just want to mush it out. That little nubbin goes in there, and it'll just push it out a little bit so that that cannot come out. The only way it would come out would be to use this tool to drive it out. Okay? All right. So. Now I'll turn it up to 3. And again, do not overdo this. You can watch it from up here. You can kind of see it mushroom a little. Whoops. Helps if you go in the right direction. That's it. That's all you need. That little bit. That's all it's got to be. And that'll be a little tight there. Some of the slack has to come out and stuff like that as you. It'll press the plates back out a little bit. All right. So now we need to adjust the chain, get it straight. And this is a 10 millimeter, and then the lock nut is a 12. Now, there's a couple ways to do this. You can basically, you can use these to measure it. You can get a set of calipers. There's other tools that do this. You know, it's not. I mean, it's critical, but it's not. You know, if it's off by 0.5 millimeter on one side, it's not like the wheel's going to fall off. Just doing the same on the other side. About where I want it. Now, because it's a brand new chain, you could go just a tiny bit more and see if, because it, you know, it's gonna stretch a little bit. Tighten it up. Now, what I have noticed, these screws, there must be something on the other side to keep it from backing out all the way. Those screws are out all the way. I've got just enough slack, but it's not going to let me adjust it any further. So on this particular bike, if you're going to do this, don't go up 2 teeth. If you're going to gear it down 1, or gear it down 3. So I may order her another sprocket because as this chain wears in, it's going to loosen a little bit. I don't have the ability to tighten it up. So I'm just going to go ahead and order her a 42 tooth sprocket. And what'll happen, I'm sorry, a 46, so I'm going to go up 3. So then what'll happen is when this gets a little bit too loose where I can't take the slack out and adjust it properly, I can keep the chain, but I'll just take the wheel off, swap the sprocket. The 1 tooth up is going to be a bigger diameter sprocket, and that's going to move the wheel that little bit forward, which will get me back into my adjustment range. I'm almost out of adjustment range. I could not get it to go in any further, so that's something that's a little different that I've noticed on other bikes. Not being able to get it in, but that's just a question of that going up only 2 teeth puts it right in that kind of in-between area where it's not enough to move it forward anymore, but having to have those extra 2 links meant that I had to move it back, and I'm back almost all the way. I don't think it'll move more than a millimeter. So she can ride it for now, and then really until that chain gets too loose, I'm just going to go ahead and order a sprocket today so that I have it. But as far as the process goes, so that's a learning experience. Never had this particular bike before. Going up 2 teeth seemed the right move looking at the gearing charts and stuff. But now in having done this, If you're going to do this, go up 1 in the back or go up 3. If you go up 2, you're not going to, because you can't cut. You have to cut the links in in even numbers. So cutting off 2 more meant I didn't have enough slack. Putting the 2 back on means I have a little bit too much. That's just an anomaly with this bike. So learning experience. It won't cost her anything. Donna, I'll pay for the sprocket. Had no idea it was going to do that. But as far as doing this, you can see the work. It's fairly easy. I mean, if you got the right tool, you got your little pieces and stuff, you can pick these up from Cycle Gear or buy them online. Buy it from DID, RK, EK. This one's RK. Buy it from a reputable company that makes chains. Those will be fairly good, and you'll be able to get replacement parts. Occasionally, you will snap that push pin that drives that out. You want to be able to replace it. So, anyway, there we are. That's the procedure for changing a chain. You can use this on any bike. It's the same way. Other than single-side swing arm bikes, that's a different process because you got a hub to get the sprocket off. It's a whole different thing. I don't have one to show you, so you'll have to Google somebody else's channel. But that's how you do it. So I'll probably go take it for a ride, see how it feels, and then I'm going to go order a 46 tooth just to have that, because I know that that's going to run out of adjustment. That's unfortunate, because it'd be perfect, I think, the way it is. But an extra tooth is just going to give it more acceleration, so it's going to make it even quicker. So anyway, if you got any questions, hopefully this helps some people. I might speed up certain parts of this that are kind of boring just to make it not be a 35-minute video. Realistically, it could probably be down to 15 minutes. So there you have it. We're all back up. I just got to tighten these up, the lock nuts. So you get this where you want. Tighten it up. See you next time.